Hey, hey, hey.
Hey,
What's up,
how's it
Robert?
going there? Not much. We are live with Texan Tailgate episode 29, TEXIT CON Pump stream. It's man, it's we're like both streaming together. It's
I know.
I like it.
I do too. I do too. This is so great, Robert. Thanks for all that you do and leading all this. This is gonna be an exciting stream. I love the pump streams because I like getting fired up about stuff. And boy, nothing more exciting than having an alternative to the wreckage that we see across the world. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
it's hope, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to keep the flames lit, especially during some of the darkest of times where people are, just not feeling it because all storms pass eventually, regardless of how big they are. But real quick, let's go ahead and acknowledge chat real quick. Say hello to everybody. We got Crypto Compassion, the call to freedom. That's pretty much exactly what this is.
He's been
We got
here since the beginning, man.
Absolutely. Got Hexy Quinn with the fire emojis. Got Ryan, cowboy hats. My Online Ghost. We got, let's see, Facing Reality. Got David Lee. Got Blockchain Trends, Identity Block. What's up, Texicans? Thank you so much for joining us. Sup, fam. Hi, guys. Been a long time since I was on stream. We got Drix.
Drix.
Drix, thank you so much for always being here. Really do appreciate you, and looking forward to having you on sometime down the road whenever you want to come back on. And let's go ahead and get this started. Go ahead and bring on
All the folks, yeah.
David Lee.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Lee, man. This is the guy, right? David Lee, are you 12 foot tall now and shoot lightning bolts out your arse? Is that how it works? You are the legend of David Lee.
And I paint rainbows with my finger across the sky.
Isn't that the truth, man?
Yeah.
How are you? Are you doing like the Wales only one thing with just the voice because people can't handle the visual as well?
Basically, the beard is getting out of control. Its days are numbered. It's even driving me crazy. And Quinn would wonder if I was some kind of wild man
I would
from the
say
wilderness if
something.
she saw it.
I would
Yeah,
definitely say something.
Yeah. Well, everyone's got to be taken care of by someone. So, Quinn, it's good to see you.
I'm orange and everything. I'm glad you guys can see me orange. My camera is not working, so I'm using an old one. So I don't know why I'm orange. I'm sorry.
It's a nice red color, I think, actually.
Sorry.
You know, it's like a flashback. I like it.
Yeah, it's
like a what?
Like a flashback to the last bull market back in the day.
I look like a red. I look like a red candle.
That's right. No, it's like Brandon as well with the orange. So
yeah.
Yes. Well, super excited to have to be on and to be hosting with Robert here. It's always good to have the regular usual suspects, Quinn and David Lee, but we've got a bunch of guests today, which is super awesome. Robert, you want to bring folks in, or how do you want to work this out? We've got Angela Wietuski. What's up, Angela?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. John Balgiano. What's going on, John? John? Hello?
Yep, I'm having some internet difficulties here. I'm going to try coming back in Chrome. So
okay.
Excuse me for a moment while I change my clothes.
You got it. You got it. And then, of course, Nate Smith, who is the executive director of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Nate, thanks for coming on, man.
Howdy. Yeah, glad to be here. It's my first tailgate to be on.
Well, the tailgate. Yeah, the Texan Tailgate obviously is a community, run, channel that's really been evolving. This is number 29, and I just appreciate the fact that y'all keep doing this and you're consistent about it on Sunday nights. And I'm just super excited about this pump stream because we've got a big conference coming up here the 9th through the 12th in Waco, Texas. That's the TEXIT Con Conference. And I just, to kick things off here, Nate, you talked about this long ago, and of course, you and I have been talking for over 2 years now. What was the inspiration? I know you've always wanted to do a TEXIT specific conference. Tell us, what's the inspiration of all this?
Yeah, I mean, the real desire behind this one is to create a large gathering of bringing these like-minded TEXIT folks together. And so, there's just so much power when you're in the same room with folks. I mean, well, Matt, you and I experienced that together in Vegas at some of the HEX conferences. And so, it's one thing to be friends online or even friends over Zoom. But it's another thing to be able to gather in the same room. There's so much energy and so much spirit that's part of that. So that was like really the driving factor behind TEXITCON. As we'll get into, we also have a multitude of knowledge and speakers and opportunities to just learn about how to be an activist, or even all the way to the fundamentals of what TEXIT is and why one might support it. And so there's a lot of other great reasons to be there, but that camaraderie was really the driving factor,
Well,
So we had a lot of people ask for that too. So
yeah, well, I'm really excited about it. You got an incredible lineup of speakers, but you also have one of those speakers with us here, and that's Angela. Angela, thanks for coming on. I think it's wonderful to have. I love your story, and I'd really love for you to kind of share with folks how you got all involved in all of this stuff, because you are a big supporter and volunteer for the TNM, but also you have a heart for a lot of things. Can you share that with us?
I'll try to, in a nutshell. Yes, I'm a homeschool mom. And in 2020, my husband, Buddy, found out about TEXIT, about Texas Nationalist Movement, and came home and said, I'm going to start collecting petitions and getting signatures. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never thought about this. I don't know what this is. And so it took 6 months for me to kind of come around. And that summer, I guess 2021, that summer, I think, is when the whole campaign started. Well, I guess labeling of parents as domestic terrorists in the school districts and keeping them from speaking kind of woke up the mama bear in me, and started, even though I homeschool, it mattered what was happening in schools, because I was a public school teacher, private school teacher, and it has, the parents have to have a voice. So then I just started with petition drive and realized I had quite a few people that kind of gathered around and helped out with that. So wanted to start a local group, did that in May of 22. And now there's a local group in Wahlberg and a local group in Belton, and I'm spreading the district director. I want to help any way I can, and learning skills as I go too, because there's a whole lot with, especially the political side of just getting involved in meeting, the networking that happens. My kids come with me to the Capitol, and while they don't love it, they've learned a lot too.
Well, that's huge. And it's to me, it's good to have the homeschool mom perspective. There's a lot of men in crypto, and there's a lot of men in the whole TEXIT movement. Your perspective, let me ask you this. You obviously, as a teacher, educator, mom, obviously you're thinking about the future probably quite often. Why is Texas independence important to you?
Well, I guess we kind of always look at it as, when you were protecting your home, you look at your backyard first. You want to take care of what's closest to you. And if I know that Texas is independent and sovereign and secure, then my children have a better future in a smaller government, less limited situation where they can be, I guess, a bigger part. So I don't know. I guess for me, I want to make sure that they are somewhere where that they have, what am I trying to say? Better control, more connection to what's taking place around them.
Yeah, it seems like it's all under attack. Because I was thinking, you said, these parents being seen as domestic terrorists. I didn't recognize you as Taliban, so it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on, and it feels like, I've often said that it feels like Texas independence is inevitable. and we work, and I know Nate's worked for a long time. And Nate, I wanted to ask you about that too, because you've been doing this for quite some time. And sometimes you feel like you make 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, and there's all kinds of challenges. I have this just sense that there's an inevitability of this because of the it becomes a necessity. Obviously, that doesn't keep you from working hard and planning events and doing all these things. With everything that's happening on the border crisis, everything that's happening financially, how do you see it? Do you see this? I mean, we've got to keep going. We got to get things on the ballot, those type of things. But do you sense that same thing to be true, that we're just marching towards Texas independence in a, it's like, more than ever today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been about 13 years since I've been involved in the movement, and politically aware and paying attention and seeing lots of things going wrong before then. I mean, I can remember parents and grandparents telling me, like, holy mackerel, things are really bad when they're growing up, and yet the world continues on. But we keep seeing things, and it's like, man, every little step just gets so much larger consequences and so much bigger. I mean, $4 trillion in debt was a big thing 20 years ago, and now we're at almost, we'll probably be looking at 40 trillion for long. We're well over 30, so it's, the scale of things has gotten so out of proportion. And at the same time, since I became involved in the TEXIT, when the organization was founded, which was a few years before I got started, single digit polling was where support for Texas independence was. And now today, numerous polls confirm that we're over 50%, over the majority of Texans. Last year, technically, it was 2/3 of likely voters. And another poll came out talking about just recently, 30 to 40% of everyone across every state thinks that their state should leave. Like a third of all people, which we know it's disproportionately strong in Texas. So, as you look at those sorts of things, you see, like, okay, the support now is an inevitability. You look at the scale and magnitude of the problems that Texas has when it is in relation to the federal government, whether it's just massive failure on the border, and openly encouraging this. I mean, there's no short way. When you have just under 2 million people in the last fiscal year illegally crossed into Texas alone. At some point, you got to scale that to an invasion, right? I mean, it's not just a matter of, well, there's a few people breaking the laws and we're getting around it. So when you look at that scale of things, yeah, absolutely. Like, we're closer than we've ever been. Now, that doesn't mean Texit's going to happen tomorrow, right? We've still got some work to do ahead of us to get this thing across the finish line. And it's, and in a lot of scenarios, it's going to be several more years to see Texas leave, and it could be 5 to 7 years before we're completely separated. And most of the events that would accelerate that, I would prefer not to happen.
Right.
Right. I would rather it take the right amount of time it needs to take for us to leave. But as you look towards where we're at, I mean, it is the inevitability. I mean, people cannot keep existing in a world under the stresses we see today, where you try to centralize government power and bring more and more people involved, and then try to unify it. You're going to end up with, like what we've seen in the U.S. politics with the alleged two-party system. You don't want a two-power system taking place on the global sphere, where there's one player and another player, and they've all rallied behind one of two teams. That's not good for humanity. That's not good for our future. Texas independence is one of the ways to prevent that from happening. And so that's why I'm excited.
Wow. Well, thanks, Nate. And, John and I got to spend some time, I think it's over a year ago, but John, you got here as fast as you could, as I recall. Tell me what was that kind of catalytic event that said to you, hey, I'm going to get involved in Texas independence? Tell us your story, John.
I first got involved in politics in general for my Second Amendment rights. Bashed my head against that in Maryland for a number of years. Finally figured it was time to get the hell out. Came down here to Texas, saw there was still work to be done. But before I made the move to Texas, I wanted to research my new home, started reading what I could, and one of the books I came across was Daniel Miller's book, TEXIT. I thought, Texas independence, that sounds pretty crazy.
Well, I'm glad you read it. I read that. Well, it's over 2 years ago now, well, 3, and you always hear about independent spirit of Texas, right? And I'm from Michigan originally, but when I saw the connection in my own personal family and my in-laws all the way back to the Republic, and you see, um, whether it be the independence of America or the independence of Texas, people standing up for what is right. And I've often felt since the very beginning of reading that book by Daniel Miller that this phrase has always come into my mind: where do good people go? And when I think about a group of people who are trying to protect their families and trying to preserve what we know is the basis of the civilized society, and you're like, who's going to defend it? Who is going to step up and stand up? And to me, what I love about the TNM and what I love about Texas independence is the leadership of Daniel Miller and the folks at the TNM said, you know what, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to do this through the political apparatus, the way it should be done, peacefully. And that's something that is refreshing. And then when you hear Daniel talk about Texas independence and other independence movements, I think a lot of people think it might be a little bit crazy, but it's amazing. In 1950, there were like half as many countries in the world. This is a very common thing. We know of Brexit. But self-determination, this idea, people understand fundamentally that their rights come from the creator, not from the state. And so we are the sovereigns in this situation. And to me, aligning ourselves with the Texan token, with the Texas nationalist movement, and encouraging people to get involved is huge. But the whole reason that we're on this stream is to really pump up the big event that's coming up here the 9th through the 12th in November. And there are still tickets available. This will be in Waco, Texas, right in the absolute heart of Texas at the convention center. Really excited about that. And Nate, I wanted to ask you, we've got some serious speakers coming, people from all, when it comes to independence, a big spectrum, some high profile people. Tell us about what to expect at the TEXIT conference.
Yeah. The speakers are going to be incredible. I mean, when we talk about things like worldwide movements and independence referendums in accordance to that, we're going to have one of our key advisors, Dr. Matt Dvorak, is coming from across the pond to come talk to us. And this guy has sat in on 17 different independence referendums that he's been a part of and seeing new nations born across the world. So to have his perspective in person at this conference is going to be a lot of value. He's given a lot of guidance and honestly checked off on a lot of things that we were already doing as a movement, which is great. But he's given the additional guidance and told us, like, not only are you guys on the right path, but here's a couple of other things y'all want to look out for. I think one of the most important facts that he brought to our attention was the fact that the average turnout for an independence referendum has been about 85%. And so when we look at this prospect of what we're in the middle of right now, a petition drive, and putting this question on the primary ballot, we're not expecting 85% turnout in a primary, but it's going to have a significant increase over standard elections and how many people are going to show up. So I think that's fascinating. And kind of related to him in an aspect, and especially in terms of the international engagement side of things, we're going to have a gentleman coming across named Graham Moore from the English Constitution Party. And he's also flying over from England. And, we think of things like Brexit and obviously use that as an example to compare TEXIT to, which was the UK essentially leaving the European Union. But the UK, United Kingdom, or Great Britain, is comprised of multiple states as well, right? There's Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England. And so the English Constitution Party says, look, we want our sovereignty all together. We know we don't agree with what is good plans for the Scottish. One of the reasons why there's a Scottish movement wanting to have a referendum and leave, they're asking for England to have its own independence, essentially leaving the British Union. And so I think that's fascinating. I'm looking forward to hearing their perspective on that as well. And Marcus Ruiz-Evans from CalExit's going to be here as well. So we'll have some great input from these other types of perspectives outside of Texas and what's going on and how they're getting their sovereignty. Take it to another end of the spectrum, and we're going to have State Senator Bob Hall here talking on Friday. And that's going to be fascinating. He's going to fill us in on election integrity issues and grid security issues. You know, these other things that are important to the sovereignty of Texas that aren't just the same as, oh, well, you know, we need our political independence. Well, there's some other things that we need too, right? And we're fortunate enough in Texas to have our own electric grid, but we know that it's not quite up to the standard that we want it to. And so Senator Hall has done a lot of work on that. He put forth a whole slate of amazing election integrity bills along with that in this last regular session. Unfortunately, most of them didn't get passed. So he's going to be updating us on the status of those, what we need to do to make progress on those in the future. We've got several other political figures there. We've got former state reps, Kyle Biederman, George Lavender, and Alan Fletcher. They're all going to be there really strong, telling us these other things, what our tips and tricks are, how we maneuver bills through the legislature, and what are some of the challenges they've had as Texas representatives in trying to overcome these federal overreach and the bills that they put forth. And, you know, I'm sure we'll learn the things that over half the bills that the Texas House puts out or the Texas legislature works on are a direct response to some federal rule, regulation, or requirement. So take it further down. We've got people there that are representing other energy expertise. We have Matt Code of the Texas Oil and Gas Workers Association. We've got Clay Montgomery there, who's a nuclear energy analyst, talking about these other ways that we can build the strength of not only Texas energy, where we are today, but also what we need to do to be a continued strong player in Texas energy. We have people from, obviously, well, I'll save the best for last, right? But we've got, I don't even have the list in front of me. There's so many I'm coming up off the top of my head. Was Grassroots Coalition Partners. We've got Joanne Fleming. We've got Julie McCarty of Shared Texas Project. Joanne is with the Grassroots America, We the People. We've got Terry Hall with the TURF that works on the transportation. We've got Marcia Watson from Citizens Defending Freedom. So we have these power players that have been in these grassroots organizations that are looking again towards Texas sovereignty, towards limited government solutions. And so we're excited to be bringing them together to share their perspectives and some of the key projects that they've been working on and how they're related. And then we have one of our favorite topics, which is economic sovereignty and independence. So we're excited that we're going to have 2 days of breakout sections on the economic policy, pretty much all crypto. So you're going to get to learn about this little thing called TEXAN token that a couple of y'all probably heard about. We're even going to have somebody there from the Texas Bitcoin Project, Jonathan LaBar. We're going to have Augie Gohill there, who's representing MMAI, which is another token and blockchain MetaMonkey. And so you're going to get a lot of fascinating perspectives on how all that comes into play. And there's going to be no shortage of knowledge. I'm excited about how many different panels and groups we have there.
Yeah, and speaking of economics and crypto, the TEXAN token is a sponsor of this event, and we're doing some things special things. And so those of you that are here, that are in crypto, considering coming to TEXIT Con, I really, the TEXIT conference is really a place we're going to be doing a meetup on Thursday evening in association with the conference. Brandon's coming in. I don't know if that's a reason to come or not. What do you think, Hexy Quinn? Do you think so? No? No. Well, he's going to be in, which is going to be awesome to have. So
I'm
we're going to do a meetup
kidding.
there. Yeah. So if you want to shake Brandon's hand, I'd encourage you to come out on that Thursday evening. And then we're going to be hosting a number of sessions, and we're putting an incentive in it for folks to sign up and come. And this is really, anyone who comes to our booth at the TEXIT conference and uses the code word Rigby, and that's because of Quinn right there, that we've got the code word Rigby, are going to receive
RIGBY.
Yes. If you use the code word Rigby, you will be airdropped 1 million TEXAN tokens. And folks, I just want you to understand something about what we have done as it relates to the TEXAN token and the TNM. I talked about on my last stream that we're giving a gift, right? We wanted to come alongside, help the Texas nationalist movement have a catalyst in fundraising, but then also to give a gift of the Texan token to folks who, a lot of cases, don't understand anything about crypto. We're going to be doing all of the education during this conference, 2 days of education about decentralized finance, how that fits into Texas independence, the Texan token specifically. We're going to be giving away Texan token. But this is a big event for us. And if you're somebody who is in the crypto space, you're a Texan holder, you're somebody that's interested, or you're a TNM member and you're like, hey, I really need to understand what this is about, get my questions answered, you're going to have plenty of time to do that. And then we want you to walk away. If you're not a holder of Texan token, you are going to be at the end of the event. And so, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that cryptocurrency has done some pretty amazing things in the last 10 years. And when you think about what is value, and if you think about fiat currency by decree, one of the exciting things to me about the future of Texas independence is, what would it look like if we were to decree our own value? And so that's the amazing thing about this, is this could be the gift that keeps on giving. So want to encourage you to register. There is a discount for Texan token folks. If you want to register for the TEXIT conference, you can go to texitconference.com/Texan token, and there is a discount. There's a $20 discount for anyone who uses that link. I'd encourage you to get signed up. Come on out. I mean, bring friends, bring spouses. I mean, we're right there by the silos with the Magnolia folks, and so it's a good destination as well to bring the whole family. But really excited about sponsoring that economics track at the conference. And so I understand that Angela is going to be also. You're going to be speaking as well. I know there's a number of topics. What are you going to be sharing at the conference?
Yeah, so this year we started an affinity group for homeschool families that are part of the TEXIT family. And so I'll be speaking just kind of how you work homeschool and TEXIT together. Largely, I think the biggest part of it is letting your children see you taking action and making them part of that. So that's sort of what I want to incorporate. For me, it was really important that when I kept going to events, I always bring my children, and they're the only ones at the booth or whatever. And I want them to see that there are other families doing the same thing, just not in our city. And so I want to bring those homeschool families reassurance and ways to get together. And through that, I will sort of talk about it in TEXIT Con too, trying to get homeschool family field trips going where we can meet across Texas, TEXIT families as well as other grassroots organizations, and just getting these children to learn more about expressing what they've been learning, how to talk about
awesome.
Government, civil action, all that. So yeah.
Well, Texas independence is such a fundamental thing. If you think about this is the birth of a new nation, right? The reboot of the Republic of Texas. And what's so amazing to me about that being so fundamental is that there is room in this for so many different voices and so many different people. And so because it's so fundamental, this isn't just one political cause, right? This is a new nation. And having a seat at the table, that's another thing that I think is so important. And what I really admire about the Texas nationalist movement is to say, hey, this isn't just important to one political, swath of the political spectrum. Because if it's done right, when there's a referendum, and Nate, I would love for you to comment about this. When the referendum happens, one of the things I loved about Daniel's vision for this is that this isn't about dictating anything. This is about people coming to the table and saying, if we were to, if we're to do this, right, we've got an opportunity to reboot this system. What is the best for the future of Texans? And I think that a lot of people misunderstand the Texas nationalist movement, thinking that it's like some just conservative thing, when in fact giving people a voice at the table, that this is a place where essentially putting government in its proper place is better for all people, right? When you don't have a two-tiered justice system, right? You have secure borders, you have these things that are about making the lives of people safer and more secure, more opportunity. How do you see it, and how does the TNM approach things when it comes to this? Because I think a lot of people, especially on the opposing side of this, want to kind of pigeonhole the TNM.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a special guest backstage,
Oh.
and before we get too far ahead, before we bring him on, there is an introduction that I'd like to play that is probably, if not rivals, the Rags to Riches introduction. I don't know what will, but
Bring it.
All righty, here we go.
Hello, this is Sam Kemp. It's no secret that I approach crypto from an old man's perspective. When I was still living in Florida, Mike Austell, the Florida mystery man, was constantly bugging me about getting involved in crypto and about how great Hex was. I had zero interest. That all changed when I heard about Texan. I saw the endowment contract as innovative, simple, and safe. How the design of the contract lends itself to the concept of delayed gratification made it the quintessential vehicle for me to provide a financial legacy for my 7 great-grandchildren. As a side note, my whole reason for committing to the success of Texas independence is to ensure that those kids can grow up in freedom. From that starting point, I decided to make a financial contribution to the TNM to acquire the means to lay the groundwork for that. Once the founders made the decision to change the multiplier, I realized my initial contribution, along with points accumulated from my volunteer work with the TNM, was going to allow me to do a little more than just provide a legacy for our family. Consequently, Betty and I have been able to directly account for 31 individual Texan stakes, a substantial number of them for the maximum 22 years. 60% of our assets are staked inside the family, and 40% were given away to friends, as well as 6 different ministry partners, including the Outlaw Bikers Ministry in Florida, Abba's House for the Homeless here in Greenville, a retirement endowment for my pastor at the Top Royal Cowboy Church here in Greenville, Maranatha Ministries in South Africa, the pastor of the International Church located in Kathmandu, Nepal, and Aqua Vita Ministries in Nicaragua. I'm not telling you these things to brag or shine the light on us, but merely to reinforce that we believe in the importance of generosity that both the founders and team members of the Texan Token exemplify on a daily basis. With that in mind, the only crypto I have any interest in is continuing to support the projects that Matt, Brandon, and the Infinite Development Team undertakes with the endowment contract in the future in support of unlocking generosity around the world. We are all in for unlocking global generosity. Aside from being in charge of the efforts to vet and support legislative candidates that will sign the Texas First Pledge, most of you are aware that I have pursued the TNM leadership to allow me to spearhead efforts with the TNM to expand the Texan Token community and act as a liaison between TNM and this team of pulse chain TEXICON experts to develop the means and methods of how to do that best. Over the years, the TNM has been engaged in a war of words with our detractors to the point where we are now taking that battle to the courtroom. That brings more public attention to the TNM, and with all the current public attention created by various players surrounding crypto, we must be extremely careful not to cross any line or engage in any conduct that might be perceived as questionable or draw undue attention to the organization. For that reason, since the primary mission of this effort is to build the Texan community through onboarding and educating TNM no-corners and novices such as myself, we at the TNM feel it is imperative to keep things as simple as possible and focus specifically on the Texan Token, and let those who have a desire to delve deeper into crypto do that as a result of their own research and pursuing their quest for knowledge outside the purview of our efforts and programs. As a result of the meeting with Nate Smith, we feel the best course of action is as follows. Inside the TNM, we have what are known as campaigns or affinity groups. For instance, veterans for TEXIT, homeschoolers for TEXIT, etc. And in the future, crypto enthusiasts for TEXIT, as the TNM has decided to call it. Obviously, not I nor the TNM can accomplish this mission without you folks. While I will be soliciting ideas, input, procedures, and implementation assistance from your team, as a precautionary measure, initially anything that we implement will have to be reviewed and approved by the TNM leadership. It will be on me to make sure that procedure does not become a bottleneck. After the basic infrastructure of the crypto enthusiasts for TEXIT is set up, My plan is to execute the program in 4 phases. Phase 1, engage and educate current Texan holders, specifically holders who have yet to stake their assets. This phase will begin officially on Thursday, November 9th at TEXIT CON Crypto Symposium in Waco, Texas. Phase 2, target leadership at the local coordinator level. Phase 3, target TNM membership. Phase 4, target supporters and public. Can't wait to see you at the TEXIT CON in Waco. And in the words of Daniel Miller, let's go win.
Wow.
Wow.
And he's not a bot, is he? Right? He's not AI generated.
No, he
No,
is
no.
he is our ace in the hole.
That's right. He's our Kid Krill. He's our Bob Dole. What is going on? Is he here with us? Look at that. There he is.
Damn.
First of all, Robert, I got to take exception. That is not even close to rival Matt's introduction of his cohort there.
Well, Sam,
Nick, I'm glad you wore your hat. I'm really glad you wore your hat tonight because I didn't want to be the only one wearing a good hat here. So, and I'm anxious to hear Nate's response to that last question too, Matt. So,
yeah. Well, welcome, Sam. We're glad you're here. And to me, one of the great things about this tailgate and just the community in general is just, for those that are in crypto, there's a lot of people that came over from, they're in the Pulse Chain community or Hexicans or whatever. When they look at this project, they see who's, a part of it, right? And to see you, Sam, you have been such a great supporter in, helping us educate folks, and I just appreciate that. And it's just cool to see folks from all walks of life, and seeing people get active, and let's make a difference. And so, Nate, why don't you go ahead and share with us that the answer to that question?
Yeah, surprisingly, I still remember, I think, what it was about. No, we were talking about, I think part of it was kind of like the TNM's approach towards some post-Texit policy and involvement in that. And so, one of the things that we do that surprises people is because a lot of people come to us not just expecting us to be kind of pigeonholed, as you mentioned, into a specific stereotype, but it's also, they come like, well, what's going to happen post-Texit? I need to know. What's Texas going to do about the currency? What's Texas going to do about this? What? And the answer is like, well, that's up to the people of Texas to decide once we get out. So TNM learned, look, I got to give credit to Daniel too. He is our leader. He's done a lot of research around all of this stuff. This is not a fly-by-night thing. He's actually crossed the line in the sand and pledged his life's work towards Texas independence back in 1996, a good 9 years before he even founded the TNM. So understand this knowledge and this research goes back, and it's watched what other movements and people have done. As you mentioned earlier, Matt, at the end of World War II, there were 54 recognized countries in the world. And at the end of the 20th century, there was just under 200 recognized countries in the world. That's a lot of new nations that were born. And most of those were born peacefully from a vote or from leaving another entity in order to prevent war from happening. So there's a lot of examples out there. And one of the things we learned about that, and this came in very, very clear around the Scottish people who waited, I'm going to get the number wrong, either 400 or 800 years that they've been working for an independence vote from Great Britain. And they finally got their referendum. And because they had the Scottish National Party, and the party had a very clear set of goals of what they wanted to achieve, instead of people going to the polls and voting for whether or not they thought Scotland should be completely independent from the UK, they voted on whether they agreed with the SNP's platform. That's not a situation we want to end up with for Texas. And that's one of the biggest reasons why you won't find this platform that we've created for what we want to happen post-Texas, because that's the most we can do, is a minimum declare what we want to happen, because it's going to be up to the people of Texas afterwards. And people look at Texans as a whole, and they come up with this idea like, well, we think Texas leans politically this way or another, and they try to put us into one of these two boxes that are typically red or blue, right? And they want us to fit in some sort of lines, but the reality is that's not. If you look at the things that unify Texans and the principles that we hold together, is that rugged individualism, those characteristics you can find at texan.cc. You look through what the Texan token stands for. You look through those sorts of things, you'll find that that's not necessarily a left or a right or a red or a blue thing. There's a thing that makes us Texans, and sure, a little bit of it is less government in our lives. The one thing that we want is instead of having to go to reps in Austin and DC to try to get our will done and then have to overlay that with the interest of 49 other states telling DC what to do. We want the Texans to have the final say in it. But it also means that, as not just this limited government approach, but as Texans, we want to decide what this looks like. Right now, Texas can't decide its own foreign policy. Texas can't decide its own trade policies. We do have to defend our borders and invest significant money in that. And that was one of the few powers that we delegated to the federal government. But we don't get to decide our immigration policy. And a lot of people have a stereotype of what that means. When we look at immigration, it's a problem that Texans have been screaming about for a long time. Not just the number of illegal entries on our southern border, but it's a matter of the fact that the immigration system hasn't made sense in the U.S. for a while. People that needed to get in, that wanted to get in, that would be a great fit, that's mixed with our ideals and values from all countries in the world. There are people that make this up. It is not a specific type of people. It's people that resonate with the Texan values. It's been extremely hard for them to get in. Well, Texans haven't been able to say what that immigration policy should look like. How easy should it be to get a visa to come work here, or to, those sorts of things. We haven't had an effect on the fact that the average legal immigrant to the U.S. takes 7 years and tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees in order to achieve citizenship. That's not exactly the Texan way. The way that the federal government treats its vets and the people that have represented us and fought for us and put their lives on the line, that's not the way Texans feel about how these things should be handled. What goes on at the VA is sadness isn't just the word for it. I mean, we should take care of people that have put their lives on the line for our liberties and our freedoms. And it's sadly something that's not happening. And I believe Texans would do it differently. But ultimately, that's the opportunity that's ahead. The TNM exists to make sure that we get our political, our economic, and our cultural independence for Texas, and then to make sure that we sustain it once we get it. But that's not telling you what we're going to do with it when we achieve it. We just want to make sure that we have those independence. And don't get me wrong, a lot of us have our own individual priorities that we want to work for. But as an organization, that's not what we're promoting. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're telling people this is the way Texas is. We want to see what Texans come up with on their own. I think it'll be significantly better. There's people that have moved to Texas from all around the world and all around the 49 states. And they already have an idea that the way things were happening where they were at, not quite the way that they want them to continue on. And so they come to Texas and they say, hey, I'm a Texan that was born in Michigan. I see that guy up on the screen from me, right? Right. They come from all over, and it's like, I don't care how late you found out in the game you were, because it's one of the things we get to, like, well, how do you define a Texan? And it's like, no, it's not someone who was born here. It's someone who resonates with our values, who wants to be a Texan. So that's why we have Texans from all around the world. That's the reason why the Texan token represents that ideal of what a Texan is. And we got Texans that have never stepped foot on Texas soil, that one day hope to change that. But we love it regardless. We're a set of principles and ideology. You see big techs or whatever at the state fair.
Yeah.
Like it's just a rough image of who we are and who we choose to be. But at the end of the day, Texan, it's not where you were born. It's a choice of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got 3 people on this stream who will get here as soon as they possibly can. Robert, I wanted to ask you, you always have some insightful thoughts. What is it about Texas independence? You obviously been in crypto, and you're not somebody who lives in the state of Texas, but this obviously resonates with you. Tell us about your perspective on Texas independence and the Texan token, those type of things. Like, why does it resonate with you?
So what really resonates with me is the fact that Texan token is not just a crypto that's about win Lambo, mad gains. It is actually tied to a cause, and it's to affect an outcome that we're all striving for in our day-to-day lives, which at the end of the day, we all want freedom and self-sovereignty. And the number one thing that keeps rolling in the back of my mind is, the more things change, the more they remain the same. And when I take a look at, the 2-party system that we have, it's just apparent to me it's a uniparty. I actually, stopped voting quite a few years ago because I kind of just lost faith in all of it. And And then I saw a lot of the events that took place during the Charlie 19, where, you know, big government getting more tyrannical. And of course, people have this thought and idea that we can, you know, if we centralize power, we can initiate and have a fair distribution system. And you can't force equality. Like, things have to be given freely from the human heart. If it's not given freely from the human heart, then you don't want it. But I see the Texas independence movement as an opportunity to just get a lot of things right that under the current systems that we have that we're just failing at. I'll be honest with you, I've never understood property tax, death tax. You know, you look at all the things that we do here in this country, and it's not just here, but it's other places as well. But when people are allowed to come together in, you know, unity, and they give their consent, a lot of amazing things can happen. And we haven't seen a free market in a very long time, but whenever, you know, government gets involved, you see taxation, you see regulation, and it gets to a point where it's too expensive to do business, and then you can't do this, you can't do that. So what do these companies do that have all this money? Well, they shut down their operations, they move overseas, they do business with somebody who's, you know, a more friendlier, more welcoming government. Sure, yeah, come on in, you know, set up shop, we'd love to have you. And then it's like, once they leave, it's like it's hard to, you know, get them to come back. So I just, you know, maybe I'm got a little bit of a tinfoil hat on, but I don't feel that presidents are elected. I really feel like they are selected. And it's, you know, I just really feel like Texan independence would just give us the opportunity to address so many issues. And there's a lot of things that Texans themselves could solve on their own. I really believe that they could. It's us trying to detach and take the chains off of these old systems that we've been bonded to for so long, because we talk about Hart's Law and liquidity, where pairs bonded together, one rises, it brings the other one up, or when one doesn't do good, it brings the other one down. So the system that we've been born into, that we're bonded to, it's bringing us down. It's not the rising tide that's lifting all boats. And I really feel like Texan independence is going to be that rising tide that lifts all boats, because this is a question that needs to be answered collectively. Do people really want their freedom? And the thing is what we consent to is what we allow. What we allow is what will continue. So I really feel like the recent events that's happened over the years, it has really, you know, struck a chord in a lot of people. Like, hey, we're not okay with this anymore. And the only way that you can make change is to get uncomfortable. That's how you get out of your comfort zone, is you have to get uncomfortable. And the greatest catalyst for change is suffering and pain. Do people want it badly enough? Do people want Texit badly enough? Or are they just sitting back and, you know, hoping that this party or this senator is going to, you know, so this is something that we have to ask ourselves, you know, do we want this bad enough? Yes, we do. Okay, what are we going to do about it? And there are people who are actively, you know, leading the charge in this fight. So I think when I see other people fighting, it's like, man, I need to go give them a hand. I can't, you know, can't stand by and just, you know, let them, you know, fight on their own. You know, and you want to be part of the good fight. So that's in a nutshell. I don't want to.
No, it's so great, Robert. You know, every time you share, I'm inspired, and I really am. No, I mean, like, you are the speechwriter for the future of Texas independence. But I'll tell you, you've encapsulated so much that I can see people nodding their heads, like, yeah, that's exactly right. So, Robert, thank you, David. I want to get to you and to Quinn as well. You know, David Lee, you've got a really interesting background when it comes to the military and history and such. What is it about Texas independence that blows your hair back, if you will?
You know, one of the biggest things was going back to Nate's answer, and some within Robert's too, when you think of all the federal policies, is there one you can think of that you wouldn't trust Texans more than the federal government? You know, I mean, it's like, duh. And it goes back being a country, having this strong culture. And so Texan was, you know, I think I call it its Texan stealth utility. You know, it has all the principles of true DeFi that we learned from Richard Hart, but then it has this connection to the TNM and the striving for, you know, individual freedom and choice, and through building yourself up through this technological revolution and digital assets, you're aiding the cause for freedom for all, like Robert said, rising, and like you say, Matt, the rising tide. So it was those things that stood out, and the importance of Texas within the United States and on the world stage. When you look at it, it's, you know, its economic power. The being in armored and cavalry, yeah, you of all the states, you meet more Texans than any other, and so I got to know them on a different level and respect them and love them, and find another worthy rival beyond Michigan. They're a little bit more fun about it though sometimes, or at least, you know, that whole in armor thing. So
yeah, no, I did.
There's a lot of things that just called to this, and in a way, you know, by throwing Richard Hart in there, and Sam mentioning you, Matt and Brandon, seeing you guys be there and just give into what is the best community and make it better every day, every way that you can. So yeah, if I'd have like a Mount Rushmore, it would have Daniel Miller, it would have Matt Frazier, it would have Brandon Davis, and it would have Richard Hart on it. Now I don't know where we can put that in Texas, but we'll figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
As long as you put Rigby on there.
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. David Lee, thank you so much. Everyone, you know, you obviously know what's so amazing about it is this community. You know, here we are, you know, people always ask me, you know, as a founder of a cryptocurrency, they're like, what's the utility, right? That's kind of the go-to thing. And I'm like, well, birthing a new nation. How's that for utility? Right. Because when you look at other utility, you know, and you go, what does it look like? Because to me, I see this, you know, this is a challenge between good and evil. Quinn, you have been so supportive of us since the very beginning and have been such a sweetheart. Why are you even a part of all this stuff? You know, you're not a Texan as far as where you live. What is it about this thing that makes you support it?
Well, if I am anything at all, I am a mama bear. And like Robert says, with the what, Charlie 19. So when they, you know, kicked all the kids out of school, my kids never went back. They went to, I homeschooled them from then on. So I fit in the realm of Angela. But I wasn't going to let someone else decide how to parent my child or tell me what was good for my child, or no. So I didn't even think about my freedom and sovereignty until Charlie 19. And then just, you know, Texas independence. I feel like that's my core values. So I never thought in a million years I'd be ready to move to Texas. But I'm not going to lie, when Nate said 5 to 7 years, I'm a little relieved because I can't get there fast enough. So that fits perfectly on my timeline. And then I just resonate with Matt and Brandon. Don't tell Brandon.
Oh, I won't.
So much. Like, I believe in soul tribes, and I know they're part of my soul tribes. So yeah, that's why I love Texan.
That was my favorite response you've ever given, Quinn. Oh my goodness, straight from the heart. And you know, that's what's so amazing about this as we come together. You know, Robert, you mentioned something that I just want to highlight. I often talk about this, and it's really from my, you know, 27 2-hour sessions with Steve Staggs is this idea that people have been convinced that the state is sovereign. And we need to remind ourselves, no, we are sovereign. And if you think about the Declaration of Independence, you know that, our rights come from a creator and they're self-evident to us. And so what did we do? What did we do in Texas and the Republic? What did we do in America? What is this idea about? And at the end of the day, we create these things so that we would have opportunities, right? That we would have security, that we would have a civilized society, we'd have opportunities for our children. And, it's interesting. David Lee talks a lot about, generations. And if you think back to what was happening in America in the 1860s, we're in that crisis era again. And when you see a completely tone deaf political class, right, that's shipping all kinds of, hundreds of billions of dollars to defend borders of a country that is probably number one as far as corruption is concerned, and fighting Texas when they're trying to keep the border secure. This is why I see this as inevitable, because there's going to be a point, and we saw a little bit of this happen recently over the border issue. But those that are in, I think this is our opportunity here. Most people don't know what's happening in Texas. And Nate, I'd love for you, as we kind of wrap this up, to talk about the current political landscape. But if you haven't had a chance to see the interview with Tucker Carlson and Ken Paxton, that was a huge eye opener for a lot of people. There is currently an absolute civil war happening in the Republican Party in Texas. And, what you probably would learn if you watch that is that basically there's been kind of a control of leadership. And so even within Texas, we haven't been able to accomplish the things that we wanted to accomplish. And, the Biden administration sent all kinds of people to try to get rid of Ken Paxton, to try to neuter his effectiveness. But right now there is a political wind shifting in Texas. And Nate, would you kind of share what that looks like? Because I think that, Daniel said it many, many times. It comes to a tipping point. We feel like we're working hard and doing these things, but there is a moment in which the political winds change, and this literally moves quickly. Can you talk about the nature of what's happening right now and how this could potentially change very quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep this as nonpartisan as possible,
sure.
Because there's.
Wow, that's about as nonpartisan as you can get right there. Isn't it crazy how these things? You got locked off. Go ahead, try it again.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I was going to say there's outside influence of Texas from the perspectives of both parties that are coming into this, right? You have this group on both the Republican side and on the Democrat side that are bringing in outside money, outside influence, all to have changed the way that Texas politics is done. And, that's all taken from a picture before you even realize that if you've spent any time in Austin, that those guys already and gals treat it like they're in the minor league. That the representatives we have there, they know that most of the work they're doing is in response to or to change, or to do something for Texas in the response to federal policy. The feds can pass a bill and not even fund it and hand it off to Texas and go, here you go, it's your job, fund it. We made it law. You guys have to do something about it, find the money. So when you see those kind of squabbles going on in the Texas House, and you realize that all of a sudden, and the Paxton impeachment was a good example of this, that this wasn't just, Republican versus Democrat. And so we're seeing that at all sorts of levels of state government coming in and influencing politics. There's a lot of outside money from both sides, right? I mean, go look at the governor's race the last time and understand that both governors from Democrats and Republicans got lots of outside money to influence what goes on here. And that's really speaks right to the core of Texas independence. We believe the best people to govern Texas are Texans. We believe that Texans and only Texans should decide what's best for Texas. So just as you think it's unacceptable for China or Mexico to influence the federal presidential race at the United States, why is it okay for the governor of California or New York or Florida to have an influence in Texas politics. So there's a lot bubbling up right now, and I think that for a decent portion of Texans woke up during the Paxton impeachment because they got to see for the first time some things that were happening within the predominant Republican Party within Texas, and how there wasn't all just like, oh, it's just red versus blue. And what that does is that creates an opportunity in this next primary, because if you want to change Texas politics, understand we just went through redistricting again, and redistricting just made blue areas more blue and red areas more red, right? So it made it overall easier for the people that were in power to stay in power, and that's what you'll find. It's usually the incumbents versus the people that are trying to challenge them is where the real change happens. And what we need is a change in politics in Texas. So for those that aren't going to represent the best interests of the people, regardless of which uniform they're wearing, we need to replace them. That has to happen at the primary election. That's where the vast majority of decisions are made in Texas. 90% of the races in the House, regardless of which party, are decided in the primary election in March, not in the general election in November. This has now brought more people's attention to it than we've ever had before. And here's the really fun thing. We have a petition going right now that I talked about earlier, that if we get enough signatures on it, on either the Republican or the Democrat, we can force this issue on the party's primary ballot. It's the only state level way by petition to put a question on a ballot. It's not going on the general ballot. It's going on the ballot within the party's primary if we get enough signatures. And we're doing really well, and we have a great opportunity, especially on the Republican side right now, to put that question on there. But we've been getting signatures from both the petitions we're running. If that question goes on the ballot, as I mentioned earlier too, not only does it increase voter turnout in the primary, because disenfranchised voters that felt like they've never had a voice on anything that really matters come off the sideline and say, whoa, I have an opinion about TEXIT, and I want to express that somewhere. I have an idea. Whether they're for or against, people will come out and say, I want to have my say on whether or not Texas should reassert its status as an independent nation. That brings a lot of people to the sideline too, that now all the political calculus, all the pollsters, all the work that they do is based on the same people showing up and voting every primary. When you put new blood into the primary elections, you put new voters in there that are there for a different reason, that disenfranchised people that lost hope, you're likely to see a representative get selected that is actually more representative of the values of the people that they're going to represent in Austin in government. So, and I think this is a really, really incredible opportunity. I think we're seeing not only this happen on just a general sense of people learning that there's a change in the wind, that there's more concern to have within state politics than just what we've generally seen. But you add on top of it this potential just completely non-binding referendum question, take the poll of the people in that primary election of what we want to do, and let our representatives know what we expect them to do, which is give us another vote on a statewide ballot after this. You're likely to see a major change in Texas politics, which leads to, honestly, a change in world politics. And that's what Texas independence is about. We have the opportunity as an independent nation to lead the world by example, not by force.
Yep.
And
wow.
I try not to get too far off into foreign policy, but right now it's my belief that the federal government leads the world by force. Yeah. Back 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, when I was listening to one of the presidential campaigns, I learned that the U.S. operated 1,000 military bases in 150 countries around the world. We spent $1 trillion a year at that time to maintain all those foreign bases. It kind of sounds like an empire to me. But either way, that doesn't necessarily mean leading by example. There's a bit more nuance to it. Texas has the opportunity to lead by example when we gain our independence, to show other people, here's what limited government can look like. Here's what a government that espouses this, that values the individual and their rights and their responsibilities. We have the opportunity to show them that. We have the opportunity to show them how, in general, Texans like less regulation, whether it's everything from property taxes, as Robert mentioned. Texans are generally opposed to property tax. We finally have a call to eliminate them. It's going to take a little while to get across the finish line. But there's finally mainstream discussion of it, where we talk about just the lighter regulatory environment we like as a whole. Texas is now the HQ for HQs because we have more Fortune 500 headquarters here. So big business and small business is moving here. We don't have anywhere near the level of lower regulation that I'd like to see for businesses, but we're already the lead due to the way that Texans already have less than comparative areas. And so, again, that's a place where we can be an example to the world. And a lot of people go like, well, once you leave, aren't these businesses are going to step up and just leave Texas, right? And that was the threat against Brexit too. And instead, I think we're going to see the exact opposite. I think we're going to see the trend that's already happening because Texans' values are different continue, which is going to be more and more companies are going to move here. And a few companies that associate their entire identity amongst their political, social views, they may leave, and that's all right. Because the ones that believe that individuals get to make the choices, they're the ones that are going to keep flooding in.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Nate, that is so helpful. I would say it puts the emphasis on this TEXIT conference, a highlight on it. And here's why. We know that being face-to-face with people who are passionate about this, there is a goal. And there's so many benefits in all of this. Number one, the fact that when you look eye to eye with people who are passionate about, how significant Texas independence and its impact can be, it's going to light a fire. And I think if anyone is been associated with the TNM, the Texan token, whatever it may be that's listening to this stream, I highly encourage you to get there because there is a goal. And this next big milestone is these primary ballots. And I'm going to tell you, when these get on the primary ballots, people are going to hear from Texans. And this is the next step in that process. And so a lot of what's going to be going on as far as coordination, if you're somebody who wants to get involved, you want to learn more, this is the place to do it. So, Robert, do you mind putting up that banner? Folks, there's a discount for anyone who is associated with the Texan token. It's TEXIT Conference /Texan token. There's a discount for that. If you use the code word Rigby, you're going to get 1 million Texan tokens airdropped to you. I think that's a good reason to bring a friend. You're going to be able to learn about all of the things related to crypto, decentralized finance through the track we have on economics. But you're going to be able to meet people from across Texas, but across the world who care about sovereignty, self-determination, freedom. And folks, this is something that I believe is going to be significant and catalytic for the movement. And so I'm going to highly encourage you to be there. Robert, I know we're over our time limit. Is there anything you wanted to add?
I want to, if I can.
Yeah,
Let me try anyway. Try to bring a little pump string fire at the end. Just like the tailgate is community driven. If you stop by the booth, you'll get to meet some of the community. Mr. Carrillo is volunteered. He will be there at the booth on the 12th. Mr. Camp, good evening, sir, is going to be in there in between when he's not checking out some of the great speakers. I've pressured a couple other community members. We will see if I guilt trip them enough to be there, but I will be there too. So if you come up and you use the word Rigby, not only do you get 1 million Texans, but you get a hug. So Sam, thanks for that. Opening up a can of whoop butt for us, the community knowing. And Nate, I'm glad you told us what you did about the conference because I was super excited to come. Now knowing there's going to be that many grassroots leaders and communities there, I'm super stoked now to get boots on the ground and network because everyone, that it really does. Nate at the very beginning said, there's nothing like being there and meeting people in person, and it totally is. And Angela, you're just a fire plug and a godly woman, and bless you. And I can't wait to meet you too.
I got two more surprises if you got a minute there.
Go.
So one thing I didn't mention earlier, but our key guest on Saturday is going to be Dr. Steve Turley. A lot of you probably already know of him, but if you don't, this is an influencer host. He has 1.5 million subscribers across his networks, primarily on YouTube. So, just a major influencer. He's pumped up on Texit. We're excited to see him there. So, if by chance you don't know who he is, go check it out. He's going to be really fun to watch. But the surprise I have is the link that we've been posting up for the TEXAN token. If you click on that and go there, it will say you'll get a $20 discount on the page using that coupon code. But we've actually upped that a little more. So y'all go there, check it out, and see what it is in the cart. And here's an extra little bonus there for you. So enjoy.
I appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I want to give the last word to Sam Kemp. Sam, your oration about what's happening with this new, cryptocurrency interest group that's within the TNM. Give us a word to head out. Why is a guy like you with 7 great grandchildren, you are everywhere, and I see you volunteering in what drives you, Sam?
7 things. You just mentioned them. That's it. That's the bottom line right there, Matt. I'm 78 years old. Now my plan is to live to be 100, but if that's not God's plan, I got work to do before his plan takes effect. So that's why you see me everywhere.
That's fantastic. And I love your energy, and you're an inspiration to all of us. And that's the other thing, to speaking to the people that are in the crypto space. I just want to, just as we wrap up, just say this, community, Metcalfe's law, right? Bringing in new people, right? The whole point of us, coming alongside the Texas Nationalist Movement was because we understood that there was a community of trust. And we just saw this last week, the Texas Nationalist Movement go over 500,000 members. Folks, these are people who are not in crypto. We know what's happening with the Bitcoin ETF. We see that there's a bunch more money coming in. Crypto is going to be mainstream. These are folks who are going to be holders of Texan. If we see on the ballot of the primaries, or we see things that I think are inevitable politically, the implications for people across Texas and people who believe in freedom and sovereignty, to me, this is the unlocking of abundance. And what happens when good people have resources, right? They can and will demand their sovereignty. And, I also see this as good people coming together to advocate for those who don't have a voice. So I just want to encourage you, pay attention. I think we've got the greatest utility in all of crypto, because I don't know of anyone else who has the opportunity to come alongside a group that's birthing a new nation and giving an opportunity to stand for the original purposes of defending people's right to speak, to move, to transact, and just to step up and stand up for freedom and sovereignty across the world and be a leader in that. This is a unique opportunity, and it feels like its time has come. So I want to thank Robert. Thank you so much. David Lee, Quinn, Sam Kemp, Nate Smith, Angela. Thank you so much for being on here. We appreciate you. Robert, you get the final word.
Best closing statement I can think of is government is a creation of man, and a creation of man can never be above man. And I think that's what our core is, what we need to get back to. And our rights are unalienable, meaning a lien cannot be placed upon it. So that is what all of our goal is, really. So just want to close out with that and thank everybody for coming on tonight. And we will be back next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So thank you and have a good night, everybody.
Don't mess with Texas.
Bye, guys.
I'll do it.
See ya.
Take care. I love y'all.